That was a backwards week of football that we just watched, and unfortunately we had some major injuries to some key players in fantasy football, so you need to make big investments in the week 4 waiver wire. And I'm already doing everything I can to get us ready for week 4 fantasy football, so please go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. Now I want to go with the running backs here, because I have been saying this for months now, not joking. The importance of having Trey Benson on your roster could not be understated. And listen, he's 54.8% roster right now on ESPN, so the chances are actually decent that he's not available on your waiver wire. But the fact that this guy is not above 60% rostered shows that people were not paying attention to the underlying metrics on this one. I said this dating back to the offseason. Two outcomes were going to happen with this one. Either A, Trey Benson was going to outperform James Conner and take over the starting job. And he actually, if you look at fsroundup.com, and his usage in the first several weeks was just flat out more efficient than James Conner was. So he was already outproducing him. Or the other aspect that could have happened is James Conner gets injured and Trey Benson takes over by default. Now, I was not rooting for this. I do not root for injury of any player, but unfortunately, it is the reality and has to be taken into account with James Conner particularly. And of course, we find out that he has a season-ending ankle injury. Huge bummer for James Conner, but for Trey Benson in particular, this guy can absolutely win leagues, and you should never underestimate this. This guy has league-winning upside right here, and I don't care if it costs you every dollar of fab that you have left. You need to get Trey Benson if he is on your waiver wire, because what we've seen from him is great efficiency on very low volume. Well, now he's about to take all of the volume in the backfield. And if you just remember what James Conner was capable of all those years with Kyler Murray, a lot of it's because James Conner is a good back. But Kyler Murray being a running quarterback opens up a lot for a running back as well. Trey Benson should absolutely have never been on waiver wires, but especially now, unfortunately, you will have to spend up on him, but it is worth every penny on your waiver wire this week. And Bashul Tutin's my number 2 ad, and this guy, I just don't think he should be on waivers anymore either. I mean, he gets in the end zone against the Houston Texans, and he's 48.1% rostered right now. So it should be very clear at this point that, yes, it is Travis Etienne's backfield, but Bashul Tutin does have plenty of a role in this Jacksonville offense. Now that Tank Bigsby is gone, it is clearly Bashul Tutin who is getting not only number 2 carries, but he's also providing a change of back role in this offense. I think Bashul Tutin is absolutely a must-add as well. Now here comes the Washington backfield, which is still just bizarre, and I don't know why. They don't want to give Bill Krosky the majority of the work here, but they don't. And that's the reality that you have to cope with in this Washington backfield. I spent all of last week tempering expectations on Bill Krosky, and it was not really met with positivity. And I get it. I don't like being the wet blanket on things, but the usage in this game versus the Las Vegas Raiders proves exactly what I'm trying to prove. This was a backfield that was not completely Bill Krosky's. And yes, he did get in the end zone. Good for him. So did Jeremy McNichols. But if you actually look at the real volume, it was going to Chris Rodriguez. Yeah, the guy that was a healthy scratch just in week 1, he was getting the majority of the work out of this backfield. I don't know what it is, but they don't want to give Bill Krosky the majority of the volume, and you can't treat it like they do. This offense is just flat out not set up for Bill Krosky yet, and you have to be able to claim these guys on waivers. Washington's backfield is very widely available. Chris Rodriguez is 1.6% rostered, and Jeremy McNichols is 3.1% rostered. Now, I will say this. If you do grab one of them, it should be Chris Rodriguez because, again, he's handling the majority of the work as far as carries go in this backfield. Now, Jeremy McNichols gets in the end zone, and it could fool a lot of people into grabbing Jeremy McNichols. I would not personally spend more than 10% of my fab on Jeremy McNichols. This guy is in a position to where, listen, he is definitely going to be the receiving back moving forward, but this game against the Raiders just didn't provide a very stable outlook for this one. I mean, they crushed the Raiders in this game, which was shocking to me again on a weird week, but I will say this, there's going to be a lot of games where they're not going to be crushing their opponent, and they're going to be trailing in it as well. So Jeremy McNichols, I think, is more factored into those types of game scripts than he was in this particular week. So I do think that Jeremy McNichols is particularly a solid ad, especially if you're in a deeper league. But if you're in a more shallow league and you just need running back depth, Chris Rodriguez is the Washington back that you want out of that backfield. Woody Marks, I talked about him before the season started, and I said, keep an eye on this guy because I really do think that he could have some involvement. It's growing more and more by week in this Houston offense, which is atrocious, by the way. Houston's offense, it's not just the offensive line. That offensive line is one of the worst, if not the worst, but the play calling is absolutely abysmal in there as well. They can't get anything going. And I will say this, typically, I don't want a running back in that bad of an offense, but Woody Marks has been very efficient on every touch, and he is a very good pass receiving back. This guy profiled as a top-tier receiving back out of college, and I do believe that more time goes on, he will start to get more work out of this backfield, particularly in the pass. So I do think, yes, he's not as high profile and not as high priority as Trey Benson, Bashal Tutin, Chris Rodriguez, but he's right there with Jeremy McNichols. I do see Woody Marks being able to have utility on your fantasy team moving forward. He is 8.9% rostered. I think right now is the time you need to grab a potential breakout running back like this, and I use that term loosely because I don't see Woody Marks as a top 30 back or anything like that all of a sudden. What I see Woody Marks as is a guy that can offer you a flex performance if you desperately need it in a couple of weeks or so. So just keep an eye on this guy right now. I do think he's worth a pickup in deeper leagues, but I would not say that he's a priority add above Trey Benson and above Bashal Tutin, for example. And the last running back to always keep an eye on is Ollie Gordon. I will say this. Ollie Gordon is a unique one because I do believe that the Dolphins realistically could continue this workload right here. Now, Ollie Gordon is 23.3% rostered on ESPN. People have had their eye on this guy. But the one thing about Ollie Gordon that really stood out last week was obviously he gets in the end zone against the Bills, right? But it was actually his workload and his involvement compared to Devon Achane that made me reminded me of the 2023 backfield when Raheem Mostert had his best season. Ollie Gordon didn't look like Raheem Mostert. I am not trying to say that in the slightest of terms. What I am trying to tell you, though, is that this offense does like that two running back system, and Mike McDaniel, if he had it his way, would have it like that. I don't know if this is what we're going to see consistently from Ollie Gordon, but if he does play like he did last week, we could start to see Ollie Gordon get more involved in the backfield. So for that reason, I do think it's a worthwhile pickup in certain situations. Now let's go over to our wide receivers right now, and I do believe that Elic Ayamaner is still the best option on the wire. I get it. Trey Tucker just had a massive week. We'll go through him here in a minute. There's also some other injuries to wide receivers on other teams. But Elic Ayamaner, I believe this one provides the most amount of upside for the longest term. This is not a rental right here. It's not based on injury to any player. This guy is outperforming Calvin Ridley right now. Bottom line, end of story. I said Calvin Ridley was going to have his best week this week, and it turned out to be the exact opposite. He had one of his worst weeks this week. He had one catch in this game, man. Elic Ayamaner is just having more chemistry with Cam Ward so far. He's 21.1% rostered still. So even after the involvement that we've seen through the first 2 weeks with Elic Ayamaner, in week 3, I guarantee you he's going to go up to like 40% rostered. I do believe that he is the most worthwhile wide receiver on this list because the workload is very stable. It's very, very sustainable. It's very consistent, and it will continue to be that way. And honestly, it would not shock me if by year end that this guy outproduces Calvin Ridley in receiving yards in this Tennessee offense. Because the bottom line is with a rookie quarterback, you never know who they want to throw to. Last year, Caleb Williams didn't like throwing to DJ Moore that much. It was not DJ Moore that was having a great year. This year, Cam Ward prefers to throw to Elic Ayamaner over Calvin Ridley. You need to factor that in, and he should not be on waivers at this point. Now, Trey Tucker is my number 2. And I will say this, I've had my eye on Trey Tucker for a couple weeks now, and I actually drafted quite a bit of Trey Tucker in best ball leagues because I saw what this guy was being discussed like in this Las Vegas offense over the offseason. He was always involved in the first team. This is not coming out of nowhere right here. This performance, yes, it's incredible. I mean, he had a hat trick performance, over 100 yards receiving. He was incredible from a fantasy perspective, and nobody played him. Barely anybody had him on his roster. 2% rostered on ESPN leagues. This guy is going to absolutely be this week's Troy Franklin, though, where I believe Troy Franklin should be rostered, by the way, and I do believe that Trey Tucker should, But I will say this is not sustainable. It's not. Trey Tucker is a smaller, more gadget wide receiver just based on his usage over the past several years with Las Vegas. I do think that he has involvement moving forward, and this is not a waste of a pickup. I do believe he should be on rosters, but I will say this, I don't see him continuing to get even half of the involvement that he just got last week. And I just think the efficiency of what he did with his touches this past week was an outlier of all outliers. I do not expect this performance again from Trey Tucker in 2025. I do think he's worth rostering and definitely provides good depth because the target share has been there. But at the same time, Trey Tucker is not a central piece to that offense like Brock Bowers is or like Jacoby Myers is. Now, Torrey Horton is another wide receiver that you need to keep a very close eye on, and this week may be the week to jump on him. He's the Seattle Seahawks rookie wide receiver who I had pegged, actually before the season started, to be the number 2 on this offense. I think it's starting to come to fruition. This guy is 1.1% rostered. He has been an excellent returner through first 3 weeks of the season this far. But what he has done now the past 2 weeks is get in the end zone as a receiver as well. This guy continues to show more involvement, and he has just been good on every touch with the Seattle Seahawks thus far. And Cooper Kupp is inconsistent and just not as good as he used to be. I do believe they're really hungry for a wide receiver too. I think Torrey Horton continues to get more involvement in the Seattle offense, and for that reason alone, I think should be on rosters. This guy is not coming in and going to continue to see just secondhand touches after Cooper Kupp. He will absolutely overtake Cooper Kupp at this point. It's not a question to me. So Torrey Horton to me, 1.1% rostered. He won't be the biggest pickup this week, but this is the perfect use of our automatic waiver wire tool. After initial priority waiver claims run, there is always a mad dash at 3 in the morning when waivers run to go pick up the remaining top options. And what our system has done is automated that process for you so you can sleep peacefully while beating the rest of your league to those players. This automatic waiver wire tool is saving teams in 2025. I cannot stress this enough. The amount of people that have said this is changing the game in their league is absolutely ridiculous. You wouldn't believe it. Picking up Torrey Horton this week with this tool is going to be a godsend for your team. So if you do want to get access to the waiver wire tool, go to fsroundup.com right now and sign up for the premium subscription tier where you can actually get a 12-day free trial to test out the automatic waiver system. And then after you are officially a customer with us and your 12-day free trial is up, I will give you a team breakdown if you desire to do so. You can email us at fsroundup.com, your full team, and I will break down your full team with you, including waiver ideas, trade acquisitions to make, everything to help your team get better. I will provide after you become an official customer with us at FS Roundup. And this automatic waiver tool, this is really what you want to get in on right now, because the last thing you want to do is look like a guy like this.
This is Ted. Look at him. Ted desperately needs to pick up a new running back, or his fantasy team is toast. For the 3rd year in a row. And losing his season again means one thing.
Oh no. Come on, Ted. Yeah.
Don't be Ted. Use Fantasy Football Roundup to automate your waiver pickups and rest easy this season. Huh. Look at him.
Now, our next wide receiver is going to be Luther Burden of the Chicago Bears, and I actually think that he is going to be one of those guys that people would say, why would you not pick up Luther Burden over Trey Tucker or Torrey Horton? I believe that Luther Burden, what we saw, was a little bit of a mirage, and I'll be honest with you guys. It's 9.3% roster, but this guy was a highly touted rookie. He was a second-round pick for the Bears, so in theory, he should be more involved moving forward after a breakout performance. But if you actually look at the usage over the past weekend versus the Dallas Cowboys, it was the majority of it on that flea flicker play for the Chicago Bears, where Caleb threw a beautiful ball, by the way. That was a beautiful pass. But I will say this, I just think that with all the weapons in Chicago, it's really hard for me to see this type of production to continue moving forward with Luther Burden. I do think that this could have been a one-time thing for Luther Burden in 2025, and if you played him, great. I don't know who would have played him, but if you did, congratulations to you. I think we hit our peak here with Luther Burden. If you have him, sell him high, but I do think he's worth rostering at this point because he does have value. And that is an important thing to consider in fantasy football, is when a player has value on a team, that means you could trade them. So Luther Burden to me is a great pickup and trade type of player because this guy realistically, again, is the number 3 option in an offense that I still don't fully trust quite yet. So I don't think that Luther Burden as a fantasy option is a very sustainable thing. Now, this one I do think has potential to be sustainable, at least for a couple weeks. Rental on Sterling Shepard in Tampa Bay. Sterling Shepard is the guy that is very low rostered, 0.9% rostered right now. But I will tell you this, Tampa Bay's offense is desperate for wide receiver play. If you did not know, Mike Evans went down mid-game in that game after he caught a touchdown pass to a hamstring injury. So he is probably in line to miss the next couple of games at least. Emeka Egbuka, additionally, banged up. Didn't look banged up. The guy played fantastic again, but this guy is banged up. And by the way, one thing that always gets overlooked is Sterling Shepard and Baker Mayfield have chemistry dating back to college with Oklahoma Sooners. These guys definitely know what each other are thinking, and Sterling Shepard has low-key been an important target for Baker Mayfield over the duration of the season so far. This is not a one-off right here. His production is not going to be Luther Burden's production in Week 3. His production will not be Trey Tucker's game in Week 3 either. But what you could get is a Wan'Dale Robinson type of play where you have a solid floor of basically around 10 points in a full PPR format, and maybe you could get a 17-point week out of him if he gets in the end zone. But I do not think that this is a crazy add to make if you are desperate for a flex play over the duration of the next several weeks while Mike Evans is out and Chris Godwin is still ramping up to return. And I would also say the same goes for Kevontae Turpin of the Dallas Cowboys. You might ask me, why is it not Jalen Tolbert? The reason why it's not, and I've had my eye on Kevontae Turpin the past several weeks, is because Kevontae Turpin gets a lot of different touches a lot of different ways. This guy gets runs out of the backfield. He gets jet sweeps as a receiver. He also gets targets as well. So this guy is used a lot in this Dallas offense with CeeDee Lamb. Without CeeDee Lamb for the next several weeks, which is probably what it's going to be, this guy, I believe, gets more involved on a weekly basis and is used in the game plan more. So this guy at 2.4% rostered, again, not a priority add. I would definitely want to have Elick Amader or a bunch of those running backs we talked about. But Kevontae Turpin is the guy that you don't want to overlook on the waiver wire this week if you're desperate for wide receiver play. And the last thing I wanted to do here was go through one tight end that I was actually shocked to learn that he was on the majority of waiver wires at this point. The reason I haven't included him all these weeks, because I honestly thought he was rostered. Hunter Henry should not be on waivers, guys. This performance you just saw from Hunter Henry was not out of the norm. Now, it's not always going to happen, right? This was definitely more of an outlier performance, I would say. But Hunter Henry gives us this type of performance a couple of times a year, probably 3 to 4 times a year. You can get a week like this from Hunter Henry. So if you are really desperate for tight end play, as a lot of people are right now, Hunter Henry is the guy you want on waivers. And again, I was shocked to learn that he was only rostered in 48.9% of leagues. This is crazy to me. This guy can solve a lot of people's tight ends, and you should get him off waivers immediately if you are one of those people. So let me know who your top pickup is going to be for Week 4, and stay tuned for Week 4's buy low video.